Hello, Alexandra.
Hello.
Thank you for coming all the way to Capelle from sunny Amerongen.
No problem.
Yeah. So is Amerongen the big SaaS capital now, or?
I heard Veenendaal is the SaaS capital of the
Absolutely,
Netherlands.
it's Silicon Valley, according to me and many others. I cannot disclose their names, unfortunately. They asked me to keep it private.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. So, SaaS Masters doesn't typically have podcasts where we interview founders. That's for my colleague, Johan, who does the Wheel of SaaS podcast mostly. But I stole one for myself, and that's you. Because one, you have a topic with your company that I'm really, excited by and, can spar about for a few hours. We will not record for a few hours. Don't worry. You can
Happy to.
see your family today still. It's just a topic that comes to mind, and, the English might help because, even though you live in Amerongen, you're not a native Dutch person, right? So
Correct.
Maybe you want to tell me something about yourself?
Correct, yes. Well, again, thank you for inviting me to this, to your podcast. This is my first podcast, as I was saying, so I'm super excited. Also, it's a legit setup. So when I watched your other podcasts, this is obviously not seen. The cameras, the lights, the background, so applauds to everything here. Just a small introduction about myself. I am Alex van Viegen. I have a fancy last name. Very
international.
Very international. I'm American, but I've lived in the Netherlands now almost 10 years. I live in Amerongen, so it is not Amsterdam, but that's where I'm based with my company. I founded onboarding. And we help SaaS businesses with their customer onboarding.
Customer onboarding, fantastic.
Customer onboarding. Always have to make that distinction in the early days.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I employee onboarding or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're not there. We're with customers.
So making sure customers arrive happily, get a warm welcome.
Exactly.
Nice. But then I'm curious because you're an American, you live here for 10 years, and I've spoken to you off camera, of course, and so I know your Dutch level is quite high. But how about the rest? How was the culture gap? How was it the first time you had a business meeting with Dutch people? Or was there something, or are we just basically perfect in every way? Because that's how I view it, right?
So let me start off with you're perfect in every way. As I've seen commentaries sometimes with this going really wrong. I would say that some of the points that I had to kind of adapt around, not just in the business atmosphere, but in normal regular life, is appointment making. Mm-hmm. I think that was my biggest hurdle 10 years ago. Everywhere I went, I had to make an appointment. So from the nails to the hair to all the places where you would normally think, well, as an American, that you can walk in, it was just not the case. And that has actually made me a good professional now because I put everything on my calendar, and I live by one of my calendars. I have 3, but I join them all together, and that helps me with making plans with business owners and leaders, and also now even put a link on my website that you can just hop onto my calendar, and then it blocks my availability. So that was the interesting one. And in terms of the directness, I know that's the go-to, but it is a true one. In my honest opinion, Dutch people are direct, and it's not that Americans aren't, it's just that we sprinkle it with a little bit of aesthetics. So,
so sugarcoating.
A little bit.
Sugarcoating takes time for Dutch people, right? Time is money.
Time is money. you say it. Yeah.
So the directness is we hear that a lot, and I don't think, even though we hear it a lot, we still don't know how much of that is true. For some reason, it just doesn't dawn on us. I don't know how that works. But then, you traveled here and you moved to, you met a lovely husband, and you entered the SaaS industry as well. And from that SaaS industry introduction, at some point you moved on to becoming a SaaS founder, which is, of course, different than a payroll job, right? Slightly.
Yeah.
Why the hell did you do that?
Great question. I really enjoy solving problems, and I think that has kind of been the foundation of my entire career. So in every industry, using data to equip me to solve these problems, but also annoying a lot of people talking about what they're doing on their day-to-day to get to the underlying problem itself. And I was in the SaaS world, and the problem that I started to see was churn. It's a big one. So I led a team of machine learning engineers and started to figure out kind of churn indicators and churn signals. And I was surprised that no one was kind of pivoting towards the first couple of days, the first couple of signs, as you could say. And so when I started asking people in businesses, so not just ones that I worked in, but outside of businesses in general, why did the customer buy the product that you offered them? Mm-hmm. There weren't the answers that I expected, and sometimes no answer at all. And that kind of led me to ask more questions that dug into, okay, what's actually being communicated in those first critical conversations between the business and the customer, and then with the different teams. So diving in a little bit deeper, the makeup of those teams themselves. So you could say sales, you could say product, you could say marketing, like basically all of the high touch points, what was being conversed during those critical moments.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So you jumped into like the onboarding aspect of things, and like, how would you define the word onboarding, right? I mean, obviously it's not employee onboarding, but what would your definition would be if what is it?
Great question. I think onboarding is the strategic bridge between the promise and the product. And this is something that I've actually experienced from both sides. So that's also what I omitted before, is that this problem that I'm solving for, I've sat on both sides of the table, where I was buying the software for ACV values that I can only dream of for my own product. But then also on the other side with like that in terms of the selling. So to me, it's not a checklist. It's a continuous data-driven process that activates, aligns, and retains customers from day one.
That's a strong definition. I love the, what did you call it, strategic bridge between problems and product.
Promise and product.
Yeah. Promise is even better. Yeah, because problems is one thing, but then sales still needs to be able to transfer that part, right? So that's really cool. And then obviously you encountered that in your career at previous companies where you felt like this onboarding, as you said, like you had both the buying experience version of that and the customers experiencing it from you version from that. But then of course that's one or two or three companies where you saw that. Then you need to build a product that solves that. How do you then get started? Like, did you just start building it like, you had this specific company in mind and build everything for that? Or did you do some interviews or?
Yeah, so great question as well. I am one to learn about something that I know nothing about. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where I started. So I knew a lot about the problem, but I imagined that before I started building out a solution that I should maybe ask other people to see if they had the same problem that I had. Mm-hmm. So I did a lot of reading around like lean frameworks, lean startups. Yep. So before I coded anything, I talked to people in the roles that are in organizations that I think could use a product like mine. I did the unconventional way of actually finding investors with portfolios and then asking them, hey, I have an idea. Do you have anyone in your portfolio that I could speak with about the idea that I had? And that's really where the conversation started, with a company that had a problem when it came to customer onboarding because of the high touch, because of the complexity of their own product, and there was no visibility. So that's when I started kind of reaching out to more people, not just going to investors now, but going on LinkedIn and finding customer success people and just saying, hey, I have an idea. Is this something that you're solutioning around? What are you doing now? What could you be doing in the future? And then when I got a good amount and read a couple more books, that's when I just started coding. I actually, and I don't think a lot of people know this, I did go to a company to code for me. And when they started asking me like, well, are you sure you need machine learning? Are you sure you need data science? Then I thought, okay, either I'm not explaining this well, or I don't know the problem that I have well enough to articulate. So let me see if I could build this myself, where it's a process that I understand before I go to somebody else and try to explain it to them.
Yeah.
So that's when I started coding, and then with my builds, still was validating on the side. The thing. Super
cool. And how the coding? Where did you learn that? Did you do that in high school, or are you a secret hacker in the midnight, like hacking governments, or what?
No.
I don't know. It's maybe not the format to put it in public here. You can tell me later if that's the case. But
yeah, so I began my career as an analyst, and then moved towards data science. So I coded very early. What I didn't do, though, is work with back-end developing.
Oh, yeah, that's a different game.
That's a different game, right. So I could always query the data from a database. But when it was creating websites with front-end developing and then a product behind the scenes, yeah, that was new for me. I used a lot of open source tooling. So I was on GitHub basically every day. I was like combing through various ways of understanding, and then I just started coding myself. So I didn't go straight to the no-code solutions because that didn't really exist when I first started to code. But I did go towards one that was like a little bit of a helper. So whenever I am working on my code, I always have a code review. So I found a product that could work as my code reviewer.
Yep.
So I would like write something, I would try it, see if it worked in my terminal, and then I would like double check with this code reviewer. And then as I started building more and validating more, then these like no codes came out. But then I like still, if I did leverage anything like that, I would put in my code and say like, well, what would you change with this? And then it got better. But now I can't do that. So it wasn't spaghetti, but it was in an environment where I was like, okay, if I actually go to businesses, is this secure enough? Is this XYZ? So now I'm building my team out to help me go the next step, basically.
Super. That's exciting time. And you said you spoke to some people, you rushed by it quickly, but like, you sent a few LinkedIn messages to validate your existence. That sounds so bad. Like the existence of Onboardly in this case. Yeah. Did that work? Was that the best reach out? Like just LinkedIn DMs, or like did you just like type in CS manager SaaS and hope for the best, or how did that go? Yeah,
great question again. I think that I was limited by my search options within LinkedIn because I also did not have premium. So after a certain time, they do cap your searches as well, I figured out. I think that I could have probably spoke to more people. I'm going to be honest. I'm now like sometimes working alongside people who are in studios, and the amount of validation of the work with like 20 calls a week is something that I was not there. But what I do have is all of the conversations kind of going towards the same trend of the points that I'm solving for, with visibility, with those touch points. So not necessarily just handoffs, but what the customer sees. So there's one aspect of the business not understanding what's going on. But I think that the more crucial, more pivotal here is also your customer not knowing what's going on. So if they're confused, you already have a problem. Like internally, you can put some people together at the table, you can hash it out. But perhaps coming from a level of no understanding for your customer is maybe a bit different. Maybe the learning curve is a bit higher. The habits haven't formed. They don't really know where to go to or who to reach out to. Yeah. So that aspect of visibility for them is the trend that I started to see. And it's just, I'm still talking to people, to be very honest with you. I'm still learning to make my product even better. I hope you'll continue to do that for 20 or 30 more years. Yes. It's going to keep on. I hope so too. Being relevant to them. I hope so too. I hope I'm always in the makeup of the customer. Like they can reach out to me if they ever need anything, and not just to like that random person or like one of the people I trust, but yeah, I really hope I always have the ability to speak to the customer, because at the end of the day, you can look through all of the data, but if you don't see how they're doing it behind their laptop, you're losing like so much info there. So yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, nice. I'm curious about that actually, because you started this journey and you felt you had. I mean, everyone that starts a company has some sort of right to exist in their mind, right? Like I need to build something like this for market X, Y, and Z.
But then you become suddenly a female in Founderland. We mentioned earlier. Female in Founderland, which, also is building in public. So those are two special things. Like, how has that journey been? Like, how does the world look from the inside out or whatever? Now that you're an insider,
Yeah. Now that I'm a female founder in tech, also a solo founder. Yeah, it's been a very interesting. So I'm very still early in my journey. So what I'm relating to is just based off my experience. But if I go to an event, I love it, right? Because I get a lot of learning out of it. But one of the kind of scary moments for me is like the networking piece, when I don't see a little bit of bias, when I don't see people who look like me, right? So I am the only woman there. And this is okay for the first 30 minutes to an hour of the networking, but 2 hours I'm capped. I can only try so many times to join a circle where I'm actually either contributing or active listening. To then when I'm like, okay, where's everybody? And then on the tech side, so always with the question oh, you built it? Are you sure you built it? Did you use? And then they insert a no code, and those are great, but it's not, in my opinion, right now where I am in my journey, not something that I wanted to do fully. I can use it, I can leverage it, and I love it. It's fantastic, but yes, I also know what it means. I can open up a file and be able to read it, and hope that my notes also allow me to do that a little bit better, but commenting things in. It's been a journey. I hope, though, as I continue to grow in my journey, that I see more of me. But doors have been opening because I think I am this unique person in the field. When I was introduced to you, for example, via a warm contact, I was just floored that you were you know what, let's get on a podcast, right? Just meeting people. I have a vast community now. And I think that just comes from me just showing up. And so I hope that other people who are maybe a little bit nervous to be in these types of rooms and these situations just continue to show up. And that's too, as you mentioned, why I'm also building in public. This is not easy by any sense of the word. I actually am doing a lot of work, probably more than I would as an IC or a manager, because it's a full organization that I'm trying to keep together while also wearing so many hats. Development,
sales. Yes. Podcast guest. Professional podcast guest.
Okay,
you need to add it to your CV at the end of the day. Yeah.
I'll add it to LinkedIn and I'll tag
absolutely.
SaaS
Part of the building
masters.
in public. Nice. No, for sure. That's the tricky part, and I think that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk to you, is because first of all, female founders are rare. Of course, that's one thing, but for me, it was more that single founder is really hard.
Yeah.
Because typically you also notice that when companies at the beginning, you have a great idea, you're all motivated, you're running towards that goal, and then reality shows it's not always so simple as that evening whiteboarding, 2 or 3 of you spending the right idea, and you see that a lot around you, and then typically hopefully there's one optimist in the co-founding team that picks up the rest, says yeah guys, we need to keep going or whatever, and you need to do that by yourself. Both build the momentum, and but I think one of the things that makes it interesting is because I believe you have a really relevant product. Because onboarding, we talked about the definition before, and you gave your explanation. You gave your definition earlier in this podcast already, but we gave the comparison when we had a chat earlier. It's if you have a bad onboarding, it's typically a crack in a plate, right? That is not fixable. You can glue it together. You can do everything to the plate. You can eat off it again, but the crack will always be visible. And that's the same for a customer. So a bad onboarding will be in the long-lasting relationship with the client, will represent that crack will be visible. So, it's so important because ultimately that crack will define your upsell potential, will define your lifetime value, will define net revenue retention, churn, all those things, all those tangible metrics. And I think a lot of people, when they see churn, they look either at like, did sales close a bad deal, or did CS do a horrible job, or did the roadmap feature that was promised 2 years ago still not happen? But they rarely look at where was the handover from the point where they believed they could use this software until they actually get started with it. So the onboarding part is very passionate for me. That's why I'm rambling, so I should stop that. But now I'm wondering, what is your ideas and vision behind that crack in the plate and, things like that?
Yeah. No, I'm like nodding profusely because everything you're saying is correct. It's something that I resonate with. I think that the biggest driver of long-term retention is customer onboarding. I'm biased because I have created a whole platform around it, but it's a huge driver also of acquisition as well. Imagine you give your customer this experience that they want to tell to someone else, right? And so I think that everything that you're saying is absolutely correct. I think more companies should be focused on customer onboarding. I do know churn, the C word, it's a big one. As you were mentioning, maybe they look at what happened like with sales and what did they overpromise, did they overdeliver, and then products, you chimed it to the roadmap and the timeline. And then CS, of course, having to focus on everything that surrounds the customer. But one thing is that if you ask, okay, who is responsible for retention? You hear that a lot post-sales.
Yeah.
So not necessarily with sales. Mm-hmm. I love you sales guys. I have a lot of friends in sales. I love sales. Now I'm sounding like I have a lot of people, I love sales guys, women, everybody in sales. I think it's you guys are like hustlers, drivers. So it doesn't fall on just one team, is what I'm trying to get to. I think everyone in the organization should be responsible for retention and the customer experience. Yeah. So that's from the first early calls, but also as they're going along. So that's a little bit, I think, tying into why I could also go on for an hour plus.
Maybe we should have a 5-hour podcast, the first one on the planet. No, but, and one thing I was interested in when talking about this matter, because, I've been at many companies thanks to SaaS Masters, of course, but one of the things I've seen is like onboarding is always some sort of challenge. And like, you had a 9-month sales cycle and then followed by a 6-month or 9 months painful onboarding where many things could go wrong. And then I was like, okay, but Alexandra is building something with Onboardly, but what are you building? Like, because I could imagine a few things, but like, are you just building the automation of like, it says you need to book your next meeting in a week, or are you doing things that talk to the product? Like, what is it that you're building for the onboarding world?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one that I'm still developing and building as I go along with every prospect that I have on the phone is one thing is that customer onboarding is not static. Traditional onboarding charts you with 30, 60, 90, right? For your days, for your check-ins, for your how's it going? But realistically, that's just not how it's happening in today's landscape. I think it's important to find the metric that you should be measuring, whether that's qualitative or quantitative, center around that and understand when your customer forms the habit. Yeah. So that to me is a really good one. And how I'm doing that is basically by looking at data, of course, but looking at it in terms of signals. What I mentioned is like it being not static. It's also kind of for my platform. So you can connect to us. So one thing that I am doing is like an API integration. So not necessarily replacing the CRM tools that you're using, although maybe you get to a point where you think that ours is just perfect for your customer success team. So you keep, but the tools that are designed right now are not necessarily for customer success. So the one that I'm creating has the view for customer success, where you have a portal for your customer success manager or your onboarding specialist or implementation, where you see how many customers you want to onboard, what the metrics that you have defined with them in terms of the jobs to be done, like kind of what they want to see. And so that allows you to kind of get to this level of how and when are they receiving value from your product. On the other side of that, we talked a little bit about visibility, and that's for your customer. So my customer's customer. And that looks like a platform or a view for them, a portal, you could say, that allows them to see where they are in the journey. So what value they are getting from you, when and what and how. I work with companies that have complex onboarding, so like very high touch. And you have then updates with that, or like let's say points that will allow your customer not to access the platform, or like a little bit slower lag because something's being updated. And these are also important because they all tribute to the customer experience. So it's not a one size fits all customer onboarding, and my tool isn't either. So always in my discovery calls, I don't even show the product yet. I really want to understand if we're fit for one another. So qualify you and you qualify me for sure, like understanding what's happening now, where your pains are, and then on the next call, really showing you what I can bring to the table. So I hope that helps with the question of what am I building?
No, absolutely it does. Yeah, no, absolutely. Because, again, it's one thing to automate certain processes or flows or put some static things. I mean, that's fun. But I think one of the common mistake and now I'm speaking for Dutch people, you said we are direct, so I want to bring that back and then say I agree. But I think one of the things we are really keen about here is like communication. So, if I ask you to do something for me, it doesn't matter what, I would like to know how long is that going to take. I would like to receive an update in the meantime, like, hey, haven't forgotten about you, working on it. If you're late, I don't want to find out once you're late. I want to find out the day before I'm probably going to be late. Yeah. So, it's those kind of things. It's also those little extra communication moments that really help build or keep the trust, right? Because you have established trust before signature. Now you need to keep that by, proving whatever. And I think everybody's open to some sort of mistakes or delays or whatever, but they're not really open to being ignored.
No. I think,
so how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so trust is a really important one, in my opinion, for customer onboarding. And that's why too, and I've heard this from other professionals in the field of customer success, but I'll reiterate that onboarding should actually be done pre-sales. There should be a layer of trust that transfers. Yeah. So in my experience, I've had several, but I'll name one in particular. I was, let's say, on the other side of the table. So I was the buyer, and I'm speaking to, let's call him Chase. I'm talking to Chase
typical
about...
Dutch name.
Typical Dutch. Pepijn I'm speaking to. Yeah. And I'm telling Pepijn about my struggles, like what I want to achieve with the product. But I also want Pepijn to tell me a little bit more, like, okay, so I'm having a certain struggle, like converse, get to know me, but also get to know why I want to buy. What could be of benefit here is that you understand, like, either I am the buyer persona or I'm not, but you engage with me either way. Yeah. The information that I'm telling you, once that signature is signed, don't just, oh, yes, I'm off to President's Club again. I love you, sales. But allow Melissa to introduce herself before you exit out the scene, right? And Melissa, in this case, would be the next person that would transfer me to success, right? To get to value quicker. And so trust continuity is an important one. You have these critical handoffs that are captured in multiple tools across different systems, and there's nothing really aggregating some of that. And so there's a visibility layer that I provide to help with a little bit of that. But these are also practices that outside of Onboardly, you should have your team doing, like focusing not just on the new users, which is super, super important, but also like the processes around it, and like who's saying what and when, and who are you going to introduce to whom. Like, it should be continuous. I have this philosophy that, you treat someone how you'd want to be treated. And so humanizing this in the SaaS world, in the corporate world of customer onboarding, is like kind of the underlying tones here. Super cool.
So, what is one thing you would not want your tool to automate? So, if you look at onboarding, let's say you're an implementation manager or whatever, like, what is the one skill you do not think you can solve, but you would encourage people to just do?
Okay, so I actually am adapting this from something that I've heard, but it's called the designated frequency. Have you heard of this before?
No.
Okay, so I talked earlier about like the metric that you should be measuring to understand customer onboarding and how you succeed. So with that, you have like key actions that your customer can do in the product that correlates to someone receiving value, and how often they receive value is like something that you can identify as like a designated frequency. So if you have a super, and I'm going outside of SaaS for a second just to make this clear to other users. So if you buy a gym membership at a super fancy gym, and it's a big-ish price tag, right? It's something that you are spending a lot of money on because you want to get a lot of value out of it. And you don't tell them how to use any of the tools inside. So none of the machines, you tell them how to work. And these are the most high-end machines you can think of because they just spent a very high amount on this membership. Nobody, once you open up that door to use your membership for the first time, nobody tells you how to use nothing. Like, that's not good.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, you got this expensive membership and you can tell people about it, but when you get in, you like pick up a weight.
Yeah, exactly. Do the thing you could do for €2 at home.
Do for €2 at home. So so I never want to take, a lot of these things can be automated for sure. But I think that even with the nudges that I provide, you should be able to see when they're going to go out and when kind of have like that human in residence layer. But if I had to think of one particular one, I would say that first conversation, to be honest, because I was going to go to the QBR, but those are mostly quarterly. And maybe you're already too late. I would say like that first kickoff call, sure, send an email, but like be in the room with them, understanding how they're going to be using it. And that could have been done pre-sales, but you want to kind of get to know your customers on a level of understanding and emotional layer. And that I think can't be automated.
No.
You can read about who your customer is. I can provide you with information, but if you haven't spoken to them yourself at one period, and they're supposed to be like the most important thing to you, then I wouldn't like fully automate that away. Definitely put in some nudges there, but you got to speak to them.
No, I agree. I think, I worked at companies which did that really well, where also, in the sales cycle still in the later stage, and they were like enterprise sales or longer sales cycles, right? They would actually bring in their implementation manager if they would sign. And you could see that, a connection already formed before the signature, because like not only does the customer have seen who they're going to work with, have some sort of like feeling with their capability and like feel like they're going to be in good hands with this person. They seem to understand my business. But also what we saw is like post-signature, the implementation manager typically was also fighting for like, but I still want to, I met with them, I want to onboard them. They seem like good people to be around. So the relationship was already there before signature. And I think that's cool. Really powerful.
Yeah.
So I agree with that first meeting. And I also agree that you can sometimes bring that forward a bit into the process. That's really strong. Then, final stuff is the, like, we touched upon it a bit, but the community, like, you're putting yourself out there. I think we met maybe 3-4 weeks, I don't know, not so long ago. And since then, I saw you so many things, walking around, meeting people. You're really investing in community, and as both like, an introvert a bit, maybe you're still putting yourself out there because it's in, the best interest of Onboardly. But I also feel you really understand communities, because communities, like a lot of people go to communities to retrieve knowledge, but it's also kind of a two-way street, right? So you also share your knowledge. What is the feel, or what is the, what is the thing you aim to get from communities?
Ooh. Yeah. What do I aim to get from communities? You're right. It is a two-way street, because as much as I'm like putting myself out there, like I dropped, personal story, I dropped in a Dutch startup founders WhatsApp group when I first launched, that I want some early design partners, right? So what I'm looking for, basically, just a couple, like 3 bullet points, really quick. So if it's a text message, right, you're just like scrolling and you're like, okay, I can help this person or I can't. Because this group has like also like 300, 400 people in it. And one person immediately responded and was like, I got you, right? And then next thing I know, I'm on a podium pitching Onboardly in front of investors, in front of other founders. And that's also how I met you. I would say I get a lot out of my community by just seeing how the community also works. I'm a first-time founder. I've never done this before, so learning from other people who have already done it before also helps me, where they can maybe see where I could potentially go wrong, not necessarily tell me not to do it, but then like just a caution, like a warning of like, hey, I've tried that before. Maybe you should try this area, or have you thought about reaching out to this person? What I can give back to my community is the learnings that I'm like, that I'm maybe not listening to. You talked about off camera being a little hard-headed. Like that's a little sometimes with me where I think like, I got this, like you'll see. And then I hit a wall. I think that I've learned community in general is important. So in business, but also in my personal life. I came to the Netherlands where I didn't, like I have one cousin who lives in another suburb outside of The Hague. And that's all I knew, her and then my partner and his family, of course. But I had to build my business contacts. I had to show that my degree was transferable, my mathematics degree in the United States. Yes, it's a real one. It's not from The View, but it is, you know. And so building a community from that perspective showed me that I could get a lot out of it. I really love mentoring as well. So now I feel like I'm rambling because this is also something I'm passionate about. I'm a mentor in various like Women in AI Benelux, just again giving back, showing people that you can also do this. Yes, it's hard, but look where I am. So without like, I know this sounds a little egotist, but like I can do it. And I came from somewhere that I had to completely start over new here. I also learned the language, like lots on community. Also in the professional world, personal world, I do have children. And so building a community even for them, showing them that you can ask for help is an important one. I have a lot of help with my children. That's how I'm able to do all these things that I can do. And it's one of the questions I'm always like, how can you do all these things? Yeah, because I built a community where I can reach out to people and ask for help, not just with the kiddos, but with like, if I want to go to an event or if I want to find someone who's experiencing the problem I'm aiming to solve, just asking the question and not being afraid to hear no, because I get those as well. Like, I don't have this for you. I don't. But then I'm kept in the memory or their thought. And then when they do have something, they reach back out. And I do the same. So I'm helping, for example, someone who can't find a job right now in product. I've got a huge product network. All I needed was the resume. Had a conversation. I got to know the person. And then now I'm, hey, does anyone have a role, right? It's like I got doors open for me, so I'm helping by opening doors for people kind of behind me.
No, that's fantastic. Then a final question I have around community, right? Because you're a solo founder. Yeah. Do you plan to be a solo founder forever, or are you like, I haven't seen any job ads, to be honest, on LinkedIn, but I haven't looked for them either, so maybe that's the reason. But are you looking for co-founders? And if so, what kind of person would you like to meet? Yeah.
So you just told me about the 3 H's and I wrote it down.
Oh, okay.
So yes, I am looking for a co-founder. I know I cannot sustainably do this all myself. I think that's also why I'm also building a team. So I already started hiring, but actually I didn't go the normal route. I just like put a post that said I'm hiring for these 3 roles. And then I got an enormous amount of resumes that way.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, I was really like shocked, but it helps me. It's exciting. It's a journey that I'm just trudging on. So yes, answering your question. Yes, I'm looking for a co-founder, someone who can kind of fill the gaps that I don't have, someone that I can learn from. You mentioned the hacker, hipster, hustler. And I'm still trying to figure out which one of those is me, because right now I'm all of them because I have to be. So which one I'm most comfortable with is going to be an interesting one for me to find out. But yeah, open to not just people who are in the tech world, because I am a tech founder myself, but maybe someone who is in the success world, or one that has, who can just get things done. I always like people who have an idea and then just try it, because the worst you could do is fail.
Yeah.
And from that, you can learn so much.
Mm-hmm. Well, those would be hustlers typically.
Okay.
They would just try, go, and hit the wall at some point. But they will figure it out once. I have one son, I have 2 sons and a daughter, but one of my sons, he feels like I don't want to slowly look at how things will come to play. I was just going to run and fall over everything in my way and then see if it works. He's a suicidal person.
Okay.
He's 1.5 years old, so not, it's all good, but it's quite,
Cool.
Okay, but good. So maybe slightly hustler-oriented somebody, because, I think, like you say, you're doing all 3 roles now, which is quite impressive, but maybe not the most sustainable. So I hope, you'll meet a good buddy there that can help you on your way. I really respect your journey. I think it's really, it's a hard journey, but the community, like you say, will keep you going. There's many people that have been through what you've been through, what you're going through right now, right? Yeah. So absolutely use that, but you're also, like you said, ahead of so many others that aspire to be what you already are. So it's good to, I think the theme of the last SaaS Summit Benelux was pay it forward, which is really good. Good theme, like everything you learn, just give it to somebody else. So I think you're nailing that as well. And I'm excited to continue following your journey. If you're a co-founder and you find this story interesting like me, just give us a ping if you want to get in touch with Alexandra, or find her at Alexandra van Viegen, very Dutch pronunciation, at LinkedIn, of course. But by this time, she'll be swamped with DMs. So if you can't get in touch, give me a message and then, we'll be fine. Also, there's opportunities for investments in Onboardly for a good deal. And if you happen to be both the co-founder and the investor profile, give us a ring as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your wisdom on this topic that I'm too passionate about. I wish we could go on for 2 more hours, but then everybody would at some point now I need to get out of my car, or whatever they're doing, right?
I appreciate it. I will also say reach out to this one, because adding more to your plate. That this is also an incredible person of the community who you want to know. So
thank you.
I've learned so much from you. I'm already stealing your plate analogy, and just having conversations with you has just allowed me to be a better professional, better founder, and really excited to keep going. Yeah, that should not be something that's skipped over. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for allowing me to be in your platform. And send him a message as well.
So, going to be busy in our LinkedIn DM. So, apologies if we respond in 2 weeks. No, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Okay. Appreciate it.